All right, we are live. Welcome back to another episode of Red Dot Forum Camera Talk. And we are going to pick up where we ended, sort of, from last episode. If you haven't seen that one yet, just before I start, that was kind of part one of what we called after capture. So everything that happens after you take the picture, in other words, computers and hard drives and card readers and stuff like that. We spent a lot of time really diving into a lot of hardware things. So this time we're going to get into the software side of things and the workflow and post-processing. So just wanted to give you that right up front. If you haven't seen the last episode, check out our videos. Everything goes onto the channel. And okay, so let's back up and do some quick intros. I am David Farkas. I'm joined by my co-host, Josh Lair.
Hey, everybody.
And also we've got Jose Rivera producing the show for us.
Hello, guys.
And looks like we've got Kirsten Vignes in the chat, so she can answer some of your guys' questions, drop some links in there, and we're gonna keep an eye on your questions. I see a lot of chatter already, so we'll be keeping an eye there. And yeah, so Josh, let's talk a little bit.
Wait a minute, we got Bill saying major echo. Anyone else hear an echo? This is the time to work out the technical stuff, right, if we have a problem. Did we leave something on from our testing?
I don't know.
No? Sorry, Bill, looks like it's just you.
All right, Jose, can you verify we got no echo? Sorry, guys, just the joys of live
right.
YouTube production.
So it's always fun. It's okay, though. Couple of bugs here and there are not unexpected. And better to happen now than, 40 minutes into the show when we got.
I'm seeing a lot of no echoes, but
okay.
We're
gonna keep going, and if you see anything weird, definitely let us know because we can make changes and adjustments. So anyway, what are we talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Don't mind the dog; he's just
chomping away,
chomping on his chew toy over there. Today, we had hoped to get to Lightroom last episode. We got a little carried away with the hardware and the geeky stuff, so we decided not to rush it, and then instead dedicate an entire episode to Lightroom and sort of the workflow surrounding it.
Yeah.
And the first thing I want to mention is that David and I both are aware that there are a lot of other really, really great editing tools out there. It's not like we're saying you have to use Lightroom and nothing else. But this is about Lightroom. So we use it, we like it, it works for us. But if there's something else that you found that works for you, that's awesome. I mean, we're all about it. It's just not what we're going to cover tonight.
Right. I mean, I've gotten a lot of comments and questions of like, why do you guys only talk about Lightroom? Why don't you talk about X, Y, or Z?
Yeah.
And I'm just going to get this out of the way and give the same answer I always give, which is I didn't always use Lightroom. I have used Adobe forever. I mean, like 30 years now. I've used Photoshop, but I wasn't a big fan of the early Lightroom, like version 1 and whatnot. It was pretty clunky and slow and limited. And at that time, Capture One and Aperture were just way better. But Leica made a strategic shift back right before the S2 was released at the end of 2009, and the M9 actually. So the M9, the S2, basically prior to that, Leica would give away a CD, remember those, of Capture One with every M8, M8.2, Deluxe 5, I think, or Deluxe 4.
Yeah, 4, yeah.
Deluxe 4. Yeah. And they distributed probably 100,000 Capture One software licenses. And they made this strategic shift to move to Adobe. And the reasons that were told to me were basically that with the S2 being a medium format camera, they were worried about running into kind of conflict of interest because Phase One, who makes Capture One, also their primary business is medium format cameras. But they also thought Adobe would just be a really good long-term strategic partner because they're the industry standard. And I think Leica saw that Lightroom was going to be really growing into something a lot more powerful and comprehensive and take over the industry. And I mean, you and I, when we first started out and showing people the S2 in 2010, what was the number one question?
Well, that's a tether.
Well, I mean, what will it work with? Will it work with Capture One?
Oh,
right.
I missed the one-year question.
Oh, sorry.
But that's what they were.
Right.
That was the indirect.
Yeah.
Does it tether into Capture One?
Right.
Right. Because at the time, that's what
everybody used.
Was the standard, and this was Leica's first real attempt at medium format.
Right.
They were breaking into an industry that was very well established at the time. We've come a long way since then.
Yeah, and Adobe's come a really long way.
There wasn't even Creative Cloud back then. It was just like
no, it was just like
hundreds of dollars every year when you wanted to get
upgrade.
a new version.
So basically, Leica and Adobe have an ongoing relationship for more than 10 years now, and Adobe actually creates official camera profiles with official support from the engineering team at Leica. So these guys actually talk to each other, coordinate, and really try to get the most out of the files. You know, Capture One, they don't have access to the cameras. So I don't know how they end up making profiles for it, but again, it's not officially supported.
I don't want to say you can't get good results in other programs.
Right.
But what we have discovered from our experience is that Lightroom gives you what we think is the best results. This is what we're going to talk about tonight. But again, don't feel like we're saying you shouldn't do other or try other pieces of software. This is just what works for us.
Yeah.
This is what we teach.
Right.
This is what we preach and we're excited about. So
yeah,
any Lightroom questions that you folks have, ask us. But if it's about another program, you can pose the question. Maybe someone else can answer it. But our focus is going to be on the Adobe platform with a focus on Lightroom today.
Oh, I am seeing, hold on, just a technical note. So I'm seeing a message from my team that we seem a little bit out of sync on the audio.
Okay. Is there a fix for that?
There is a fix for that.
Let's talk slower.
No, and I can actually see on our preview it's a little off.
Okay.
So just hold 1 second, guys. Just want to make sure our audio sync time is correct.
Okay.
And sometimes one of those lovely things.
Is Jose gonna fix that? Click some buttons.
I don't know. Let's try. All right. So let's get into a little bit. You want to cover start addressing some of these questions and.
Yeah, why don't we pull up the questions? Jose, you got the questions in front of you, or are you still?
Yeah, let him do that. We're gonna work here.
Okay, Jose's working on the thing.
I'll let you take a look here while I.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions that we received ahead of time that we're gonna try to get to, especially since we didn't cover Lightroom last time. So let's see. Why don't we start with the third question down, which is I think really
that is
the best one.
I'll ask you. Okay.
You want to ask me or want me to ask you?
I'll ask you. Okay. We can take turns with this because this is a pretty big concept.
Yes.
Okay. We get this a lot more than you might think, which is, does shooting in RAW really make a difference? Like, should I even bother if I don't want to have the hassle of shooting in RAW and processing my images? I just want to go out and take pictures and just be done. So is there really a difference?
Yeah. And when we say shooting in RAW, we mean with a Leica system camera, DNG file. In the camera's menu, you're going to have DNG, JPEG, or DNG plus JPEG. Those are the file formats you have available to you. And the short answer is, if you are looking to get the most out of the camera, you need to shoot RAW. You need to shoot DNG. At the very least, DNG plus JPEG, so you've got that DNG file. The amount of adjustability and quality that you have from a DNG file is exponentially greater than a JPEG file. This is especially true in low light or tricky light or high dynamic range situations, anywhere where you're really pushing the limits of the camera. But even in a very gray sky, plenty of light situation, a RAW file not only has dramatically higher quality, it also has much more adjustability to it. You can do so many more things to a RAW file, or again, RAW and DNG are interchangeable in this case. So if we say a RAW file, we mean a DNG.
Did you explain what a DNG stands for?
DNG is digital negative. It's Adobe's sort of universal format for a RAW file. You can open up a DNG file in any version of any Adobe product. You may not get the best results from Photoshop 3, but it will work, or whatever, amazing.
I'm only going to work with Photoshop 3.
Oh, whatever. Some old version of Photoshop. You know what I mean?
Photoshop 3 came out in 1996.
So the amount of adjustability and quality you have in a RAW file is so dramatic and so much greater than a JPEG that it is unquestionably worth the initial learning curve, which there is, to learn a good digital RAW workflow, in this case with Lightroom. Hands down. In my mind, there are reasons to shoot JPEG for sure, but not when it comes to actually getting a file, an image that you like, working on it, and then outputting it, whether that's for social media, sharing with your friends, printing, displaying in some way. You got to shoot RAW. David has some good analogies. He's the analogy guy, so
I like a good analogy here and there.
I'll kick this back to you. What are you thinking?
Yeah, look, everybody likes a good analogy. So the way I like to explain it in a really simple way is imagine your photo that you're trying to make is, I don't know, a cake, okay? You're baking a cake. And normally, like if you had a JPEG, you're basically like buying a cookie from the bakery, okay? And it's
a cake.
Cake, whatever. You're buying yeah, but who can eat a whole cake? You're buying a piece of cake from the bakery, okay, if you shoot a JPEG. And it could be very nice, and I'm sure it's wonderful. But if you want control over what goes into the cake, that cake's already baked. You can't just add more sugar or add more flour or add more extra eggs. You can't do that because it's done. It's cooked, right? So you can't undo things. With the raw file, it's as if you're going to the pantry and you're getting all the ingredients. And you choose how much of everything you want to use. What's even better is if it doesn't come out right, you can go back, make a few tweaks, and do it again. The difference is it doesn't take 40 minutes to bake. It takes 2 seconds to re-export. So your raw file allows you the control of adjusting all of the elements of exposure, of highlights, shadows, white balance, noise reduction, sharpening. All these things are adjustable by you on an per image basis. But also you might change your style over time. I might like a really punchy, saturated look, and then, I go through my like moody period or something and I want everything really like super low key and washed out. I can just go back and re-edit those same files.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. If you're not ready to work on raw files and you feel intimidated by that learning curve, that's okay. But shoot DNG plus JPEG and just store those DNGs somewhere. Don't touch them, because that way, as you learn a raw workflow and you learn Lightroom, you'll have those DNGs there that you can grab and import and edit and use as needed. So if you're, again, even if you're like, well, I don't know how to do anything with raw, still shoot DNG plus JPEG and just store those files somewhere. We talked about storage options last episode. Watch that if you can, because then you'll have them. So when you finally do get around to learning Lightroom, you can use them. So I just want to get that out of the way. So everything David and I are going to talk about tonight is based around shooting raw. It's a raw workflow. We're not going to talk about shooting JPEGs. We're not going to talk about editing JPEGs. We may talk about how to get JPEGs from a raw file. Sure. But we're not going to talk about the front end of that. So going to get that out of the way right now. All right. That's enough of that. What's next?
Okay. You'll notice I don't have a laptop in front of me today.
If only you could see.
Well, I'm actually going to show, because last episode I made some hardware recommendations for you guys. And I realized actually, since I'd be doing some Lightroom to actually show what real performance would be on a desktop level. And also this computer is dead silent even when it's running at full tilt, so it wouldn't pick up on the microphone. My laptop probably would sound like it's going to take off to the next flight. Yeah. All right, so first I am going to show you the monitor, and this is the, if you want to go, gotta be something, right?
It's already dropped. We are, how many minutes in and you dropped something? 6 minutes?
Yeah, it's okay. I'll show you guys that too. All right.
You're killing me. And the dog is right under your chair, by the way.
All right.
My dog likes to nap. He's going to break something.
I'm not going to break anything.
What's the over-under on David dropping the monitor?
I'm not breaking anything.
Now you're knocking the microphone.
I am. Okay, I'm just going to spin this around. Oh!
You broke it.
I did.
See? This monitor is the size of a small child, like a 4-year-old, okay? It's huge.
Only because I had the power switch. There we go.
Did you break it? Okay.
Yeah, I just knocked it loose.
It's not turning on.
Because I knocked the power cord out.
Hey! Yeah, there we go. You see the brand there. Okay, what model is this, David? This is an Asus something.
This is an Asus P. Whoops.
There we go.
That is our YouTube thing. Let me just minimize that.
It's like Inception. There we go.
It is. Folders. Yeah, I'm going to show that later. Okay.
Look at that.
So we're going to try not to knock the power cord out this time.
Like goals.
Life goals. Okay. So it's like bigger than me.
You are going to. This is as dangerous as it gets.
All right. So this is a Asus ProArt 32 PA32UC.
So here's an iPhone. Okay.
Here's my hand.
This is huge. It's enormous.
Right. So if you imagine a 27-inch iMac is actually smaller than this.
Yeah.
But go big or go home, right?
Yes.
All right, so
That's
that
true.
is actually cleverly, and it's actually really good off-axis viewing because
Yeah,
I see how nice that looks. Okay, so I'm going to just place this over here.
I'll let you work. So David obviously likes the large monitor. Oh my god, disaster.
Well,
Okay.
the stand is a little springy.
Just be 100% sure that it's.
It's fine. It's all
This
good.
is more fun for me than it is for you, I think. But
It's all good. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you one more thing and try not to break anything.
Oh boy, what are you going to show now?
Well, because people asked about this.
No, you can't show.
I can. Okay, here we go.
This is what every day is like. I just want you guys to know that. Like we get the perfect setup, and then suddenly there's just stuff falling everywhere.
Okay, this is the computer that we're using right now, and I just gingerly picked it up. Uh-oh.
I hear noises.
Yeah, it just lost the screen capture. It's okay.
Oh boy.
So this actually right now is fully running, and it is,
We're supposed to be talking about Lightroom. David.
I know, lovely, air-cooled here.
Okay.
But
I promise you guys I'll keep him in check. This is my goal for today. All right, they see it, it's shiny, and you just broke your computer.
I did. Okay, it's fine. That'll reboot. Okay. Unfortunately,
You can't see this, but there is a blue screen of death on David's laptop or David's desktop right now. So, and all that effort to show you his computer, he broke it.
It's fine.
Some horrible error message that you just
It's because I
brought up.
unplugged many things.
I'm having a good time. This is what this show is all about, right? So, okay. So, obviously, he put his money where his mouth is. We spent 2 hours last time talking about this top-end hardware and how to get the most out of Lightroom. And what he's showing you is that. If that's his personal computer that he uses,
At home.
It's his build, uses it at home, and his whole workflow is based around that. So now he's got to start everything up over again.
Well, it only takes 5 seconds
Yeah,
to
that's
boot,
true.
so-
Advantage of a fast computer is that. So I want to talk a little bit about, again, we're going to spend time with Lightroom itself, but I want to talk about Creative Cloud. Okay, so in the old days, you bought Lightroom 4 on a CD or you downloaded it and you owned it and you just used it. And there wasn't a subscription. You didn't have to be on the internet. It was just a standalone program.
Yep.
After Lightroom 6, Adobe transitioned to this Creative Cloud model, which is basically a monthly subscription. And there's no more versions, at least version numbers. There is a version,
there
but
is
it's
like
it's
9.5
It's not
or
part of the
something, right.
name. So in the beginning, it was a little hard for people to grasp that, wait a minute, I went from just buying something and owning it to now basically what it seems like renting it. So instead of $300 or $400 up front and that's it, I'm paying $10 a month every month. But the reality is, it is a way better deal because you get Adobe Lightroom and Adobe Photoshop
And
for
Bridge.
100
And Bridge. Yep.
for $120 a year. Photoshop alone was something like $700 when you had to buy it by itself. And every time there was a new version, it was hundreds of dollars more to get the new version. Same with Lightroom. Wasn't as expensive, but the same idea.
Yep.
But now with Creative Cloud, you don't have to pay any more than $10 a month, and you always have the latest version. Whether it's a small update or a major update, you simply have your Creative Cloud little app running, and it updates automatically. So you always have the latest features, the latest camera compatibility, everything, latest bug
Performance.
fixes, performance.
Yeah.
So you're spending $10 a month, but you're guaranteed to have the latest version all the time, and you don't have to worry that I have to spend another $500 now to buy the newest version. Not to mention, if you have a computer with internet access, you can access Photoshop or Lightroom anywhere because you download it, you log into your account, like I just did on this laptop. I just logged into my Adobe account, and now I've got Lightroom on here. I don't have to have a license key or get my CD or any of that. So you can use it anywhere, which is very nice. And it all ties in beautifully. And remember, you're getting Photoshop and Lightroom, not just Lightroom, not just Photoshop and Lightroom for $10 a month. So for me and for everyone, it is without a doubt worth it because it's cheaper in the long run and you don't have to think about it. You don't have to worry, oh, I got to get the new version. Should I do it? Should I not? You always have the latest version. So when new cameras come out, you get the compatibility as soon as possible. So do not be, it doesn't mean that just because it's called Creative Cloud doesn't mean you have to use cloud services. You don't have to store your files in the cloud.
I actually don't.
Neither of us use the cloud part of Creative Cloud.
Right.
It's
I use the creative part.
think of it as just a name. It's just the name of the program. Lightroom Creative Cloud. Or Lightroom Classic Creative Cloud, I should say.
Yep.
Is what we're using. So just because it has the name cloud in it doesn't mean you have to use cloud storage at all. You just have to have an account with Adobe. You pay the $10 a month, and then you have access to Lightroom and Photoshop. Simple as that. Worth it. I've been doing it for years. As long as they've had this subscription model, I've been doing it. So, yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. Some people are vehemently against it, you know what, that's okay, but you're missing out. Because David, for example, took a lot of old files somewhat recently from older cameras, processed to his maximum ability in Lightroom 5 or 6, and he reprocessed them in the latest version of Creative Cloud Lightroom. And they're dramatically better. Dramatically better.
Yeah.
So here we're able to get a higher quality image from our tools, from our cameras, simply by using the latest version of the software.
Well, and that goes also back to why shoot raw, right? You have, and the thing is, I might have been like a little bit skeptical back in the day when 10 years ago when I shot the camera, oh yeah, you should shoot raw because in the future, you're gonna be able to get better quality. I'm like, maybe, can you really get more out of the same file?
Yeah.
And the reality is, yes, I've seen it, you can, which is quite the rabbit hole because now like, I wonder, that file
so
got
it's
a lot
called,
better.
the official name, just so we're all on the same page here, is, what do they call it? Adobe Photoshop Lightroom Classic. I'm just reading the about screen here. I'm on version 9.4, which is the latest version I just updated. So Adobe Photoshop Lightroom Classic. You don't want Adobe Lightroom CC. That's like the junior version. You're missing out on all the features. We're covering tonight Adobe Photoshop Lightroom Classic. That is the name. That's what you want. Just putting that out there.
All right.
Yes. So I just wanted to get that out of the way as well because that's what we're going to be talking about. Now, we've already covered 20 minutes without actually covering anything. And the reality is Lightroom is an incredibly comprehensive program. It's incredibly powerful. You're not going to learn it all tonight. You're not going to learn most of it tonight. Sorry to say. David and I don't know all of it.
I'm always amazed. I'm like, oh, that's how you do that? That's awesome.
I mean, I know I did, but you probably learned stuff just getting ready for this video. So what we sort of have done as we've begun to realize how important it is to maximize Lightroom to get the most from these cameras, from these Leica cameras, we've talked about this before, but I'll talk about it tonight. We've actually partnered with a professional photographer, retoucher, instructor named John Latimer to offer customized Lightroom one-on-one sessions. We started out doing a couple of workshops
I'll bring up the
in
site
the store,
so you can see.
And we did that, which was great. And then John did a good job, so we transitioned to these remote one-on-one workshops. So
hey, that's us. That's so weird.
It's weird. So what happens is, instead of having to go somewhere or be in a classroom with 15 other people or watch some YouTube video, no offense to us, but you actually get one-on-one time in hourly increments with someone
Jose, you could pop this up. I've got a screenshot.
Someone whose job it is to teach you not only editing, we're not talking about fancy stuff. We're talking about the basics to the most advanced. We're talking about going from not having Lightroom at all to understanding how it works, workflow, editing, migrating from Aperture or Photos or whatever you were using before. So this is, I'm pointing like you can see, but David is showing the sessions. This is on our website. So this is with John Latimer. So you sign up. I would recommend starting with just an hour or two. John will reach out to you to schedule a time that works for you. You can be
John.
Anywhere in the world. He's super flexible. And this is what he does for a living. He's a professional retoucher, printer, photographer. I mean, he's been a university professor for years. He was my university professor back at RIT back in the day. So anyway, we're going to have a lot of questions, which we're going to get to in like 4 seconds. But this is what we recommend if you have more questions. So let's get started.
Let's get to it.
The first thing you need to do, which is we might as well talk about importing. If I had to say, what's the one thing you wish all your customers and friends and clients knew about Lightroom or understood is how to properly import your photos? Because one of the questions I know John gets and David and I get all the time is, I don't know where my photos are.
I've definitely walked through that process.
Yes. So what I'm going to have David do, and we're keep firing questions away in the chat, but we're going to just cover this important topic right now. The import process. You have a memory card, right, with photos on it.
I do. I didn't drop it.
You've just been out shooting, and now you're like, okay, I want to get my shots into Lightroom, want to make some magic happen. How do I do that in a way that ensures the photos are properly organized and I can locate them? Go.
Right here. Okay. Now, I already have these imported in this catalog. So I was going to go ahead and create a new catalog. So this is kind of where you would start. And hopefully that is more helpful. I'm going to come back to the big catalog to show you other things. But I'm just going to, and you can head over to my screen share here, and I'm just going to show you. So right now I'm in a catalog, and if this is a little hard to see, I've got a little magnifier tool here. All right, so hopefully everyone can see that. And let me actually take you through the whole process. So up here, I'm just doing new catalog.
Go slow.
I'm going slow.
Okay,
great.
Slower.
All right.
Me saying go slow is kind of hypocritical. But.
It is, right? Now I have a little different, well, I was going to say, I actually have a kind of a place where I put these, which I'm trying to find it right now. Quick access, there we go. All right, so I have a Lightroom folder that actually is cloud-based. We can talk a little bit about that later, but just right now I'm going to create a new catalog, and I'm just going to call it live stream demo.
There you go.
Okay. So I'm creating a new catalog. It's asking me if I want to back up this catalog. I'm going to skip it for the sake of time. And right.
So what David did, he had Lightroom already open with his old catalog, but we're trying to show you from step one.
Yep.
So we're starting off with a fresh catalog, just like you installed Lightroom for the first time.
Yep, and there it is.
There we go.
It is empty, you can see. I feel like, yes, this magic. As you can see, there's nothing in this catalog. I have nothing on my sleeve. Okay, you can see, and I'm gonna zoom in again just to show the close-up here. All photographs 0, right? There's nothing here. So in the library view, I'll just click this to show you. So we're in the library at the top here. In the library view, and Jose, just hide me for a second, because I see that I'm blocking the screen. Vanish. Okay, I want to move that over here. All right, so you see import. Now, before I do that, I'm going to put my memory card into the card reader, which you can't see because I'm not on screen anymore. Now, depending on your settings, it might actually show up. But see, it's saying click import to begin.
Right, there's a setting in Lightroom preferences where if you insert a memory card into your computer, it will automatically bring up the import dialog. I don't think either of us use that because we may want to put a card in and import later, and I don't want to be forced to do something or have something pop up. So we have it set where you have to actually click the import button. But I think by default, it may actually do it automatically. So
I think it might, yeah.
When you put the card in the first time, give it a second to see if it like pops up the screen David just.
All right, so this is what you'll see. Basically, you're going to see a whole bunch of thumbnails. And no, these are not in your computer yet. Okay, this is just previews. It's showing you what's on the card. So I'm going to walk you through. This is very left to righty. Everything is kind of upper left corner to bottom right corner. So kind of like reading a book. So we're going to take this. I'm going to, again, zoom in so you guys can see if you're looking on your phone. So all the way in the upper left, you'll see from. And it says USB drive D because I've got a USB card reader plugged in. And it's looking in the DCIM folder, and it's actually including everything because I have include subfolders checked. And you can see I've got 2 folders here, 100 Leica, 101 Leica, but it's looking in both of these. All right, so that's kind of the source. This is where everything's coming from. Then when we go to the middle, remember I'm zoomed in, so just keep that in mind. We have copy as DNG, copy, move, and add. Most of the time, if you're importing from memory card, you're just going to be using copy because it's going to take it from the card, copy it, not delete it, not move it, to another destination that we're going to set further to the right. Okay, so we're going to go further over here. And you'll see here, I'm importing to my local C drive, okay? Or if you're on a Mac, it'll just be your hard drive. And up here, file handling. So again, we're going like left to right, top to bottom. So I'm going to look here, file handling, build previews. So we have the choice now of minimal, embedded in sidecar, standard, or one-to-one. I used to recommend minimal because it was the fastest way to go, especially if you were on the road on a laptop. The reality is now, if you watch our last episode, computers have gotten a lot faster and a lot can take advantage of a lot of more cores of processor. So this is a 12-core computer, so I feel very confident doing standard. One-to-one is basically going to render everything at full size, like a full-size JPEG for every single file on import. This will definitely be slower, but if you have a fast enough computer, you could do this. We used to use this let's say if you had a really slow computer, you'd render one-to-one previews and just let it run all night and then wake up and start working on your files, and it would make your editing a lot faster. But for now, I generally just do standard because computer's fast enough to do standard, and it's fast enough to zoom in one-to-one and render that much more quickly. Definitely, I do not import duplicates. So Lightroom is clever enough because a lot of these names, file names, will repeat themselves after a while. But it actually looks at the whole thing. It looks at the date and the time of capture as well as the file name, and it knows if they're the same file or not. And if it is, it'll skip over them. You also have the ability to make a backup copy. Say you want to go to an external hard drive. I don't usually do this. You can. And I really like this one, which is Smart Preview. So I always make sure this is checked. Smart Previews, we can talk about in a little bit more detail later on. I'll demonstrate it for you how it works. But basically, it lets you take editable images, much smaller thumbnail versions, without having the original file there. So if I don't have this checked and I don't have these pictures loaded where Lightroom's looking for them, it'll just come up with a blank image and say file is missing. If I generate a smart preview, I'll actually be able to see it. I just won't be able to export the full-size image. All right, so going down, and there's going to be a little discussion about this. I'm going to come back to this. I personally don't rename my files. That could be good or bad, and we'll discuss that in a little bit. Apply during import. What I usually do here, move that again. What I usually do here is apply a user preset. So lucky for me, there actually is, this is an SL2 preset. I wasn't sure if it was going to show in this catalog. So I'm applying my import preset, which is applying a basic set of corrections to every single file automatically without me having to do anything except click that box. And if you're not aware, I have created a full set of Lightroom import presets for every Leica camera, new and old. Digital cameras, obviously. Okay, now metadata, you can create a metadata set, but just to keep things simple, this was actually taken last fall in Seattle and the Pacific Northwest when I was first shooting with the SL2. So I'm gonna just name these, I'll say just some general tags, Seattle, Pacific Northwest, I don't know, what do you, travel, yeah, just like testing because I was testing out the camera. Yeah, let's just do that. And say, actually, let me do fall and I think it was September, October, or something like that. October. Okay. And I'll do the year, like it matters. Okay, so we've got a few keywords here, right? Now, you can choose anything you want, and you can import.
Yeah, I think I want to just cut in for a second. Jose, come back to me for a moment, just because I'm getting eye strain from looking at this computer. You know, what David is doing now, the keywording, you know, he's kind of going over it quickly, but the reality is that it's probably one of the most useful organizational tactics you can have. Because as your Lightroom catalog gets into the thousands and the tens of thousands, and you want to know, where are those pictures from Seattle? Or where are those pictures with this? Or where are those pictures with that? Keywording will allow you to find them, just like searching on the internet. You just type in your keyword and it will come up. So I know we kind of just like went into that, but
kind of glossing over that.
The reality is, it's these probably more so than folders or anything else, the single most powerful organizational, searchable, catalogable tool that Lightroom has available to it. It's extremely useful, and I am guilty of not keywording enough, and I always regret it because, you know, I'm a car guy. I'm shooting cars, so nowadays I'll keyword like with Ferrari or Lamborghini or whatever, so I can find all my Ferrari shots or whatever it may be. I'll even keyword with the Instagram handle of the person whose car it is, so I can find it later for them. So we kind of just toss in a few keywords there, but that actually is a huge thing. And you can keyword after import. You could keyword just in your catalog.
You can do it on a per image basis.
Yes.
Or what I'm doing on an import basis. So kind of the generic tags, that aren't going to be specific. So, and we'll come back to the screen, but you'll see this is a variety of pictures. So I've got some stuff from Pike's Place Market. I've got some landscape images from Olympic. Now, if I import them in separate batches, I could tag them separately in groups, or I can just go in and tag those groupings individually later in the library module. But you can get even really specific. Let's say that you want to get into stock photography or micro stock, whatever. You could say sunset, yellow, warm, happy, inspirational. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a place. It doesn't have to be a thing. You can have moods. You can have colors. You can have subject matter. It's kind of like, tagging Instagram photos, right? Because you can search on Instagram tags if you're interested in.
It's like a hashtag, actually.
It's a hashtag.
The same concept. We all know what hashtag. Well, some of us.
No, not all.
Hashtags are. I don't really know what they are, but
it's the same thing. It's metadata.
Yeah,
right. It's a tag.
Because the more meticulous you are up front, meaning the better your import practices are, it's going to make your editing and exporting life so much easier. I just want to sort of get that concept out front right now. I mean, we're going to talk about a lot of really specific technical stuff, but the reality is, just like with anything else in life, the more organized you are up front, the better. And the time you spend organizing up front means you can spend more time actually editing, more time sharing pictures, and more time shooting, which is really the ultimate goal.
Yes.
Back to you, David. You want to go back to the old...
Should we take a couple of questions before we...
Probably. We're getting ahead of ourselves, as we always do. I have a feeling that there are going to be a lot of questions.
I'm going to go through the rest of this process, I think, and then
first.
Let's do that first.
All right. We're going to finish import, I promise you, and then we're going to answer some.
Let's just finish this.
Super specific.
Oh yeah, and we can keep me on the screen, so it's a little less. Yeah. Okay. So what we've done, I've just over here. So I've got keywords set up, and you can even, create a new preset. Just like I can have a develop preset, I can have keyword presets. So if I know that for an entire trip, I'm going to be typing the same preset, the same keywords every single import, I can just make kind of a quick preset for that, and it'll apply those as we go. All right. My organizational method is pretty straightforward. And let's just pretend for a minute that this is on my laptop and we're traveling. Okay. So you'll see in my pictures, I don't have any folders in my pictures folder because it's generally fairly empty to make room for whatever I'm going to go shoot. So I'm going to create up here destination into subfolder, and I have SL2 test shots. I think it said testing before, but I'm putting test shots in now. And you'll see the gray here, maybe you won't, where it says SL2 test shots, it's going and a plus sign. It's actually going to create that folder on my hard drive for me. So, and that is basically it. Once I get to the bottom here, I can just click import. So we started all the way in the upper left, picking our drive, saying that we're going to copy these DNG files over. Okay, we're going to make smart previews for them. We're going to not import duplicates. We're doing standard previews, and we're putting in some basic tagging information. And like Josh said, the more tags that you do up front, the easier it's going to be to find your pictures. So you can tag people that might be in them. If you're traveling with family members, you can tag them. If it's a work trip, if it's a family trip, you can just put all the kind of thing in there. So try to just develop your own library of keywords, if you will, that you'll know to go back and search for things. And then I'm putting it into a subfolder that I'm creating into my pictures folder, which is on my C drive. If I wanted to put these onto an external drive, I could do that here, right? I have an external Samsung drive here, which you can see I've actually got Norway and Patagonia on there, right? So these are actually folders of raw files, which I'll show you how it works in terms of having a travel catalog and then incorporating it with your main catalog. Okay, so we're pretty much ready to go. The only thing I didn't show you is the thumbnail view. And if you just use the plus and minus keys on your keyboard, the minus keyboard makes the thumbnail smaller, and the plus key makes the thumbnails bigger. You can also use the little slider down at the bottom here, okay? But basically, I do want to import everything because I'll rather delete after going. It's not usually a good idea to edit on this screen, so just import everything.
So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to stay in this view. I'm going to fire off a couple of live questions to you, David.
Yep.
And I'll sort of pose the question. I may add some insight, and I want you to show it. It may take him a second to figure out where we're going, but
let's do that.
I'm gonna look through some of these live questions. So I've got, where did that question go? Bear with me here. Thomas Johnston. Tom, you're asking, import tag camera is redundant. No, you don't need to.
You don't.
You don't need to add the camera information or the lens information.
And I'll show you that. Just remind me to come back to it because there's some really powerful camera and exposure info tools that I want to show you guys.
Right. So you do not need to say Leica M10 or SL2 or any of that.
It's all built into the file.
Yes. Bob Wayne's calling you out for calling it Pike's Place because you're a tourist. First of all, you need tourists.
Pike Place Market. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's too funny.
Pike Place Market.
Pike Place Market, yes. Pike's Peak. Okay.
I am a tourist, though.
Oh, Kelly Nepser. If I use Classic to open a Lightroom 4 or 5 library with processed images, what happens to those images? Does it update with the new profiles or features, or does it leave them previously edited?
A little bit of both. So what will happen is, and I've had this happen as I go through with my catalog, when there is a major update for Lightroom, like it happened I think in May, I had to update my catalog. It says, your catalog is no longer compatible with the new features of Lightroom. Click here to update it. It updates the catalog, little thing. It makes a backup copy of your old catalog, makes a new copy of your current catalog, and it updates it with all the current features and information that it needs for the new version of Lightroom. But it's going to take your old photos in with their old processing. So it'll have 2012 version process. It'll have the old sliders. So instead of highlight and shadow, it'll have fill light and recovery, which are old tools. And it'll still show that way in the newest version of Lightroom until you update it with the new process, and then it will revert and all the tools will change to the new version. Yeah. So the answer is, all your photos will look exactly the same with exactly the same processing with the latest features of Lightroom available to you, and you will see how much it is improved when you go to the new version.
Yeah, good answer. I'm gonna ask another one. Sanarchist is asking a question I think a few other people want to know the answer to. I have been in a library nightmare and now have thousands of duplicates caused by trying to reorganize the file structure. What's the best tool or plugin to find and remove duplicates? Or should I just start over and create a new library if I'm willing to lose old edits? That's an intense question.
That is really tough, and I'm actually going to punt this one off because this is probably not my specialty. I haven't had a complete chaos situation like that before, but I do know that the John Latimer, who we referred to before, he actually does specialize in a lot of this kind of problem solving.
Yeah.
And it might be worth your while, especially if you want to keep those files and keep those edits and eliminate the chaos. I am pretty confident that he'd have a solution for you.
Yeah, and what you can always do as well, if you've got, let's say, a nominal selection of super edited files you want to keep,
you could peel them out.
You can export them as DNGs.
True, too.
With all the edits applied. That's what I did for tonight's demonstration that I'll show later. Is so when you export in Lightroom, we'll cover that specifically later, but when you export as a DNG, you can do it with all your Lightroom changes there. So if you needed to start from scratch and want to keep a couple of files you really worked on hard, export them as DNGs, and then you could open them in any version of Lightroom. You could open them in Adobe Camera Raw, in Photoshop, or whatever. So that's that. Let me just keep firing off some questions here for you, David.
Well, should I import these while we're going? Or do you want to stay on the screen?
Well, somebody asked, I want to find it. It's an import-related question. Bear with me here, guys and girls.
Alan, great DNG and
JPEG. Alan asks, if you shoot DNG plus JPEG, can you set the import to ignore the JPEG and only import the DNG?
Yes. I can't show you in this window because it's in the preferences in Lightroom, but I can show you if you want.
Yeah, you want to show right now?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna import and you can just see as the process as it goes. The other thing I wanted to show you is the info that I missed in the bottom left, which you probably can't see because I'm covering it. There we go. I just want to show you on this card, it's a 64 gigabyte card. I might have to zoom in a little further here. All right, so this says 59 gigabytes, 735 photos. So I just want you to see that that actually is giving you a good display of what you have there. And it will also generally show you. All right, well, nope, not over there. Sorry, on the import, should show you, yeah, here. Local disk, it's showing 1.1 out of 1.9 terabytes available. So Lightroom will generally show you quickly how much space you have left. All right, so I'm gonna go zoom back all the way out again, and I'm gonna go down here to the bottom right and click the import button. Okay, so what you're gonna see, I do apologize for this little window there. What you're gonna see is it kind of comes in chunks. There it goes. All right. And what's happening, I don't know if you can see, but what's happening is the images are all changing as they're coming in because I'm generating standard previews and simultaneously I'm generating smart previews and I'm applying that preset to the files. And this process should pick up the pace a little bit here, but it is, again, 59 gigabytes worth, right?
Why didn't you pick a card with less pictures?
I don't know. I don't know, but I can actually, you know, the advantage of having a lot of CPU cores is the fact that I can start editing these right away. You can see it's very responsive even though it's in the middle of editing.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so now let me show you that while we're waiting, and I'll show you this over here. Let me zoom in. So up here you can see the two operations in progress in the upper left corner. If I click on that, you'll see it's copy and import photos, building standard previews. So it's doing these things right now. I do not use address lookup. I do not use face detection. Face detection is off for me. I'm not a fan of that. All right, so the question was, what if I don't want to import JPEGs also? And we are going to go into preferences right here. Okay.
This is a trick question, but
what's that?
you'll see.
Oh, will I?
Yes, because if you go to, what David's going to go to the general tab here.
Yes.
And what you can do is
Here.
check that box there, but
Yep.
you can't actually only import raw files unless you manually select them. What Lightroom can do is when it imports them by default, assuming this box is not checked, is it only shows you the raw file. The JPEG file is hidden.
It is.
It's never edited, it's never touched by Lightroom, it's just hidden. It is in the original folder on your computer, but you can then go in there and delete them. But you can't actually
import them.
Import RAWs only if you shoot RAW plus JPEG, unfortunately. So there's probably a reason for that. I don't know why. I'm sure
Probably
does,
safety, so people don't trash their JPEGs.
Yes. So I always have this unchecked because I don't want to see DNG JPEG, DNG JPEG.
I absolutely do not.
I just want to see the DNGs. And I don't mind the JPEGs are there. If I don't want them, I'll just go to the folder that they're in on the computer and just delete them.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to give you a trick question, David, but
no worries.
I'm just waiting for you to get there before I
Hey.
about it. Okay, these are good questions. We got more coming in. Yes, David did build that computer. Owens, Andrew, you talking about that?
What's the question?
Just asking what kind of computer is that, which we covered last. Oh, here we go. When looking at the thumbnails in Lightroom, is there a way of telling if the image was shot in JPEG or DNG? That's Dan's question. Yes.
Sure.
David will show you that.
I will.
You can look right there on the bottom, left.
Over here, yep.
Yeah.
I mean, you can also hover over it,
Yeah,
too.
you can hover over it, zoom in, and where you can see it. There we go. Right there on the bottom left of your screen, wherever image you have selected in the bottom film strip there, you'll see it's L1 blah, 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 dot DNG. So that's a DNG file. If it was a JPEG, it would be .jpg.
Yep.
That's in my mind, that's the quickest way to see. And again, if you've got that treat JPEG files as separate unchecked, and you're shooting DNG plus JPEG, you're not going to see a JPEG in your import. You're only going to see a DNG. What are you doing over there, David?
I hit Lightroom by accident. All right.
You're low. Okay, so let me find another question. These are great. Just kind of do some rapid fire stuff to try to get to these questions here. Yeah, more reorganizing. It is, I've helped people out with this, a daunting task. If you've got thousands and thousands of images that aren't organized, and the reality is there's no, as far as I know, automated way to reorganize them, because how could it know what they are?
Right.
I mean, you can sort them by camera, you can sort them by time and date. You can do a lot of sorting, which makes it easier, but it is a lot of manual labor to actually go in if you want to, say, add your tags, your keywords, or if you want to put them in new folders or whatever. I wouldn't despair about that too much. I would say to yourself, well, at least I know now what to do. And then moving forward, hopefully you're generating thousands and thousands of great new shots, and you can have the proper workflow on those. And then if you have time, maybe pick a month. So say, I'm going to start my first month of photos that I have in Lightroom. I'm going to do that. I'm going to tag those. And then, okay, the next weekend, I got a free Sunday. I'm going to do the next month. And then just over time, you will reorganize your catalog. But it is a bit of a daunting task. Okay, let me go through the questions here. Leica likes to reset the counter with updates, meaning the file names in camera, creating duplicate names. Can Lightroom keep that straight in one library, or does this confuse the file structure? The answer is Lightroom is smart enough to know that two raw files with the same name that are different. And you can have them both existing in the same catalog without causing any trouble. If you try to search for that file name, you will get both. But Lightroom is very smart, and it knows what an actual duplicate is, meaning it knows all the things to look for, versus it doesn't just assume it's a duplicate if the file name is the same. It's smarter than that.
No, it looks for the date, the file size, all those things.
It's super smart. Yeah. So yes, it's annoying. I'm over that. Like, because David and I are using this demo and loaner cameras all the time,
so many
always
duplicate file
resetting
names.
them. I don't even care, because to me the file name in Lightroom is irrelevant, because I know that Lightroom is smart enough not to import two of the actual same.
Now, I will say,
Yes.
our friend John Latimer would vehemently disagree with us.
Yes.
So he uses a very specific file naming that if I was starting right now from scratch and I didn't have a whole back catalog, and I might still do this in the future, it is that I would do, year, like 2020, underscore month, underscore day, and then whatever it was. Because you'll be able to sort by day in a folder structure, and you can see exactly year first, organized by year, then month, then day. And you can do that renaming in Lightroom. I said I was going to touch on that. You can also rename after the fact.
Yeah.
Or you can rename on import.
Export. Right. You could rename
and export, both.
You could
actually.
rename your files from the camera when you import them.
Yep.
You could rename them in your catalog. You can rename them when you export them. So you've got a lot of opportunities to rename your files. I never do. The only time I rename my files is if I'm sending a very specific set of images to someone, and I may want to say like Noctilux at F1, Noctilux at F, something that makes it really quick and easy without having to look into the metadata what each image may be. It's pretty rare. So there you go. Let me just look at, here we go. I want to keep going though. Steven is asking, and this is perfect for you, David. Do you recommend one huge catalog for all your images or separate catalogs?
For sure, I do.
Killing me.
It's complicated. And I'll show you my kind of big current catalog, probably over the last 5 years of stuff. When I travel with the laptop, I usually will create a new catalog, just like you saw here. So let's say that we'll pretend that I'm actually going and I'm traveling to Washington State. I'm going to make a new catalog, just like you saw me do. And I'm going to import my first day of photos, which is probably not going to be 700. This is probably a few days of photos. And I'll just keep adding to it as I go, and I'll edit off of that. And the reason is, the smaller the catalog, the less previews you have, the less edits you have, the less information you have, it generally runs faster.
So let me put you on pause. The larger your catalog is, the more images you have in a given catalog.
Yes.
Yes or no question. Will it make your Lightroom performance suffer?
Yes.
Okay.
But you can overcome that with just pure computer muscle.
So this is why the question doesn't have a straight answer. If you're working at an older computer,
Yeah.
if you're working on a laptop, let's say, that's a few
Yep.
generations old, even a current one that's not top spec,
Mm-hmm.
it's better to have a smaller catalog file.
Yes.
It is more inconvenient because objectively, it's nice to have all your images from all time in
Which
one catalog.
I'll show you why.
Super nice.
The search functionality of being able to go through, because someone will ask me, hey, do you have any pictures that you took with a 30 millimeter S lens? Or do you have any pictures you took with a 50 millimeter APO M lens on an M240? Like, okay, yes. Well, what about on a M9
Right, so-
monochrome? Yes. And I can find those pictures very easily from my master catalog. And that's part of why I do it, because it allows me to kind of pull a rabbit out of a hat and provide information much more quickly. But when I'm traveling, I generally will have a smaller, contained, single-use catalog that I then import into my master catalog.
So David does both, but his main super fast computer is one large catalog with everything.
Yeah.
And that is a testament to why you need that much power, because you do not have to compromise on the size of your catalog generally. You can have hundreds of thousands of images from high-resolution cameras, all available at your fingertips, searchable, viewable, editable,
Yep.
whatever. So if you have the computing power, one big catalog is best, generally. If you don't, it's okay to work in smaller catalogs. Just be aware you have to then organize not only your photos, but also your catalogs so you know what's what. Alan says, file naming is critical if you shoot film and import scans. That's true. But I guess, Alan, you'd also like going insane because I can't imagine
It's a lot of catalog.
doing that all over again. But yes, that is a very excellent example. If you're doing any kind of scanning or working with non-digitally shot images, file naming and keywording is even that much more important, because otherwise there is no metadata, there is no stored information. You have no idea what it may be. So there's a great example. Oh, thank you, Alan, for that. So there's another question on here, David.
Yeah.
I want to ask you. Give me a second to find it. Blah, 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 blah.
Well, I would say to your blah, 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 I'd
Yes.
say blah, 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 blah.
Somebody asked, I'm going to get there. Everybody's going, you're blowing up the chat here. Hold on. How much thousands of chat right now? Here we go. Can you store, another question from Steven. Can you store a Lightroom catalog on a NAS, a network attached storage,
Yes.
and share it between different workstations?
Kind of, because that's what I do. Kind of. So I am using a Synology NAS, which I can show you that.
We talked about that in the
We
last
talked about
episode.
that, but I'm going to just show you what that would look like. Okay. Whoop. I have to log in.
Yes. You're not typing. There you go.
There we
Caps
go.
lock is on.
Caps lock is on.
Tech support.
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay.
Anytime.
Thankfully, the username is not case sensitive. Maybe.
It's loading.
Maybe it is case sensitive.
You're doing great.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
This is the fun of doing, obviously, computer-related type of stuff is challenging on its own. And to do it in this environment is even more challenging. We love it. We don't, we're nerds, but it's definitely pretty complicated to get everything going. So while you're playing around with that, I will continue to look through some questions here. So we are going to get back to that question, Steven, don't worry.
Yeah, I can give the answer while it just came up.
Okay.
So the answer is I store all of my raw files on the NAS. Okay, that's network attached storage. And it did come up. So
Okay.
But
I'm going to look at some more questions. while
yeah,
you're
I'm
talking.
just going to stick to this. When Jose comes back, you can switch over to this. Okay, so I've got on my net. Let me zoom in again. Gotta keep zooming in. Okay, so you'll see here it's a network drive. It's an IP address, and I have a folder called David. It's very high tech. And in here, I have a whole bunch of different shoots, right? So I have, let's see, Iceland Winter 2018. And in here is just a big old boring batch of raw files. That's it. That's all that's in here. And there might be occasionally an edit like that. Okay, that's a pano. So that's actually a DNG pano that I created in Lightroom. So it made a new file. But all the rest are originals. And if I go back and I go to Asheville, it looks the same. right? It's just a whole bunch of raw images. My catalog lives elsewhere. The files can be accessed by anybody anywhere that has access to the NAS, either on the network or over the internet. I keep my Lightroom files. Sorry, everything is like very different size. Okay, I have a Lightroom, and you'll notice that it's, maybe not see, but there's a little cloud icon on that. And I have, for instance, let's talk about that. Here is my, I have to zoom in further. I don't think you guys can see. This is an Asheville, and you'll see it's a Lightroom catalog. And this is my catalog here, right? So I don't use this catalog. This catalog has rolled into my master catalog. I also have old catalogs in here that were updated, okay? And that's why the name looks, I probably should name this something better. But right now, my current catalog is 2-2-2. Super organized, I know, right? Sometimes I actually do name it properly. My master catalog, it's just my catalog. So the catalog lives in here, but something that is interesting, because I have this Lightroom catalog opened, there is, let's see if I can get to, where is it?
I'm going to answer a question, I think, David, while you
Interestingly, I don't see the...
You're doing great.
Yeah, okay. It actually creates, usually, I don't know why it's not here, a lock file.
I thought I saw it floating around somewhere.
Maybe it's in there.
Yeah.
So it creates a lock file, which means that you cannot use the same catalog open in two places at the same time. It can only be open on one computer at one time. And word of warning, strong word of warning, if you leave your catalog open on your home computer and you open up the same catalog on your work computer from the same cloud folder, and you make edits in one, but you forgot to close it in the other, all your edits are going to overwrite one another from one computer to the other, whichever is basically connected last. It's not a good thing. You'll lose stuff. In best case. Worst case, you could corrupt your folder.
Bad news bears. I'm going to answer a quick question.
Make sure before you open your same catalog on another computer that you fully close it and let the whatever cloud software, whether it's iCloud or OneDrive or whatever, let it sync fully all of the temporary Lightroom files. Once it's done syncing, then you can open it on another computer.
Yes.
You can come back to the big shot. No one wants to see like my...
So Alan asks, real quick, I'll answer this. When I was in Cuba in February, some folks had trouble accessing Lightroom because of no internet connection. Can this be avoided? Lightroom Creative Cloud only requires you to be online, I think, once every 30 days.
I think it's 2 weeks.
Is it 2 weeks now? It used to be 30 days.
2 weeks,
whatever
yeah.
it is. So if you're going somewhere out of the country or somewhere where you don't think you'll have internet access for some time, right before you leave, log in.
Yeah.
Update, whatever. Do something that involves activating and opening up the programs, and that way you'll buy the most amount of time going forward. So
that is a good question.
yeah, good question, Al. Thank you. Let me just poke through the old chatteroo, see what we got here. Oh, here we go. Catalogs also on NAS. No, we know.
Oh, here I can show what it looks like when it's done.
How well does Lightroom work on iPad Pro?
Let's not get to that yet. Let's circle back. It works very well, but let's cycle back.
I think you're getting ahead of us here. That's okay though. That's a good question.
All right, but come back to the screen. I just want to show all those files have imported, and what you'll see here. Okay, you'll see a little message box. I really don't know if you guys are seeing this or not. Okay, smart previews were built or already exist for 735 photos. They don't already exist. This is the weirdest message. Just disregard it. It just means it built the previews for you. You're done. I click OK. I'm ready to edit. Although I could have actually been editing this whole time. We're just kind of waiting for this. But it's fully done. All the photos are now are now imported. I'm going to go, well, we're in library, but a good helpful hint is some really simple keyboard shortcuts, which are going to help you out. If you press the letter G on your keyboard, and you're actually in Lightroom, okay, you press the letter G, you're going to see a grid of pictures. Okay, think G for grid. G, grid. No control, no app, just G. Straight, just hit the letter G, okay? And that will bring you to the thumbnail view. And just like the import window, the plus and minus on your keyboard, minus will make the thumbnails smaller, plus will make the thumbnails bigger, except they'll actually get a lot bigger here. Okay, so that's up to you how to do. All your metadata is down on the right side. Where things are located is on the left side. So this is all your files on the left and your metadata on the right. So your keywords, camera information, stuff like that. Okay?
I just want to answer a question.
Yeah, go.
Because now finally I can answer this question in front of the largest amount of people possible.
Okay, well, we better get the big shot.
Because yeah, let's get to the
Okay.
We'll get to the wide shot before we talk more about keyboard shortcuts. Dan asks, I shot multiple portrait images last weekend with my 50 Summilux at 1.4. Why did Lightroom display that the images were shot at f2.8? This is definitely the most, or one of the most asked questions that I've had in the 10 years that I've, 10 plus years.
What camera was it?
Didn't say. I assume with an M camera.
That's the most important feature,
So,
right?
Think about it this way, right? An M lens is a mechanical object. It's a mechanical lens. There is no electronics of any kind with an M lens. The aperture on an M lens is set with a mechanical dial that you turn physically, right? Pick the aperture. When that lens is connected to the camera, there is no connection of any kind in between the setting of the aperture ring and the camera's internal brain, its processor. So you may say, well, my lens is 6-bit coded. All that's doing is telling the camera the model of the lens that's attached. That's it. It's yes or no, that's it. So the aperture value that you see either on the camera's info display or in Lightroom or in any other program is a guess. It may be right, it may be wrong. Disregard it. It has no meaning in your life because the camera actually does not know what aperture you shot at. Now, if you have an SL2 or an S with an SL2 or S lens on it, like a dedicated lens or a CL, some electronically controlled lens. Yes, in that case, the camera is physically controlling the lens's aperture with its brain, so of course it knows the aperture that you used. But with an M camera or an M lens on an SL or on a CL or an R lens, any mechanical lens on any camera, there is no connection between the aperture ring and the camera. So what the camera does is it uses algebra to guess, because if you think about it, there are 4 variables to determining an exposure: shutter speed, aperture, ISO, and the amount of light, the reading that the camera's light meter took. Because the camera is endeavoring to make a 18% gray exposure, a perfectly neutral exposure. So it knows 3 out of those 4 variables. It knows the ISO, it knows the shutter speed, because those are set in the camera, and it knows the light meter reading because it has a light meter in it. So it tries to algebraically solve for the aperture, but of course, if your exposure in actuality isn't of a piece of gray paper, it's not necessarily going to be exactly right. So you basically have to ignore that information. When you see an aperture value in Lightroom from an M camera, any M lens mounted on any other camera, it's not correct. It may be right. It may be 5 shots in a row of the same thing, and it may be 5 totally different numbers.
It's just an approximation.
It's a guess.
Yeah.
It's a guess. So
approximation sounds much more scientific.
Approximation, yes. I like guess, though, because it's more honest. Although it's not a guess. It's
an calculated algorithm.
So that is why it's at f2.8, because it doesn't actually know. So hopefully that dispels that question. I mean, it's a great question, and I'm glad you asked, actually. Thank you. Because if you didn't know that, like I didn't in the very beginning, you're like, wait, I shot that at f4. Why does it say f8? Now you understand.
Now you know.
Whew, that was fun. Okay, what's next? Blah, blah, blah. Well, David, we're talking about keyboard shortcuts.
Yes,
in Lightroom.
Yep.
And hi, Albert. Okay.
All right.
Let's do it. Let's get back to the old screeny.
Okay, here we go.
And go.
Boom. Okay. All right. So now I've got all these pictures here. What do I do with them? I don't know, Josh. What do I do?
What do we do? Well, that's the question, right? So now David he's shot pictures. He's imported his pictures into Lightroom. He's now looking at his pictures in the library module. The 2, if you want to call them tabs or sections or their official name of modules, that you'll use the most in Lightroom will be the library module, which David is in now, and the develop module.
Now the develop module, you use another handy dandy keyboard shortcut. It's kind of a guess. What do you think for develop? D. Hit D, you're gonna go into the develop module. And it's gonna use whatever the picture that was actually selected in the film strip. So this at the bottom right here, this is the film strip, okay? Now in develop, I've got one image to work with. If I wanna see multiple images, I've gotta go back to library in the grid view again. So you can toggle G to go back to grid, D for develop. Very easy. If I single click on the image, I'll be taken to a 100% view. I can check focus. And this is what I was talking about with one-to-one previews. If your computer is not that fast, let's say I go to another image, okay, and I click in, on a slow computer, you'd have a little spinny waiting thing, loading. On a fast computer, you'll notice basically once I go to the shot and zoom in, it's, nope, not you, it's at 100%. So I probably could even generate minimal previews and it wouldn't matter because as I zoom in, it's just real time. But I can look here and I can see that, gee, that looks pretty sharp. I guess my first thing to show you as well is these are not out of camera. We've talked about this before. Out of camera, although that's kind of a misnomer, but if this was completely unedited, I would hit this reset button and it would look like that. Okay?
That would be what is colloquially called out of camera.
Colloquially, although it's still not
right
purely out of camera because
we've talked about this before.
We've talked about this before. Okay. So this is with nothing. And you might say, well, that looks better. It's brighter and whatever. Why would I have to do any edits? The SL2 produces great shots out of camera. Great. But I'm going to show you just, super quick edit. What I have here is I've applied my SL2 general preset to it. And what that's going to do, I'm going to zoom back in again, and I want to show you here. So you will notice that I've got, for this one, Adobe Color, even though I've told you that I like Adobe Standard. But for the SL2, and specifically for kind of landscape and travel, I do like Adobe Color. White balance is as shot, which is auto white balance. The Leica cameras tend to be excellent for, I want to get rid of that. Okay, excellent. This is very helpful, but very annoying. Okay. I generally just leave the white balance alone. And you'll see here, I'm going to go through. It's hard to read that. I'm going to read here. So I have made this just a touch darker by default. I brought my highlights way down, brought my shadows way up, brought my whites up pretty good, and blacks down. So what I'm trying to do here, and I generally do this in most of my presets, which is, and I'm going to show you here. Okay, this is the histogram of the image as it stands. I'm going to just undo that. Ooh. Just reset the image. And I don't know if we can redo without it jumping again. Nope, we can't.
Just show the full view. They can see it in the corner.
All right, let's show the full view here.
Where did your
that is an excellent.
You can see why we don't do more videos like this.
Oh my gosh,
it's a little fiddly. So I'm grateful for the infinite patience of our viewers as we.
Well, I would love to just show because. And actually, this is magnified even. I've actually turned this up to 150% for the user interface, so you could see everything bigger. The reason I like to work on a big monitor is it gives me a lot more working real estate. So the image takes up a lot more space relative to all the tools that are around it. I don't need the tools to be huge. I want the image to be really big. So here, yeah, the problem with that, of course, is you may not be able to read all these things. But what I want you to look at is the histogram up here. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to reset this again, and you'll notice the histogram is pushed kind of to the right, it's kind of flat. So as I go and do mine, you'll notice that the histogram rises up. I don't know if that's a good way to, it has more volume to it. And the way the histogram works, I will dare to zoom in again. All right. Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's fiddly, but you got
it.
All right.
So the way the histogram works is all the way on this side is pure black. All the way on this side is pure white. And then this is values in 0 to 255. Okay, we call that 8-bit per channel. And you can see there's red, green, and blue channels here. Because the white balance is pretty accurate, the red, you see the red and the blue and everything is pretty close in terms of coming together. If it was completely neutral gray, you wouldn't see any color underneath sticking out the sides. But that's maybe a little too complicated for histogram. We're just talking about volume. So generally speaking, you'll have more information in your image if you can have a fuller histogram. Now, if everything is scrunched all the way to one side, which let's just do that, okay? There's no image information up here. All your information is now scrunched into the shadowy sections. If I overexpose it, now we're the other way. I've got all my image information over here in the brightest part of the image, and I've got no detail down here, okay? So what we're aiming for is a histogram that basically is somewhere about there, which is going to go as close to the blacks as you can without clipping the blacks, and as close to the white as you can without clipping the whites. And at the same time, giving more mid-tone information, which will have a fuller, deeper tone. So that's kind of what we're looking for in the histogram. And my preset, by bringing down, and I'll show you what each one does, by bringing down the highlights, I'm bringing them back to the midtones. The shadows, if I bring those up, you'll see they're all scrunched to the left side. And as I slide that, I'm bringing those away from the black. And I'm getting more information in those shadows. But at the same time, I don't want it to be flat. As you see it, the histogram is now pulling too far away from that wall. And as I bring the blacks down, I'm increasing shadow contrast. And likewise with the white, I'm increasing highlight contrast, because if you're here, you're so far away from white that everything's going to look really flat and muted. So it's all about finding a balance. And that's kind of where the preset starts. And then you just need to adjust it on a per image basis. Down in our presence, we've got texture, clarity, dehaze, vibrance, saturation. I'm going to go with the old adage here is a little bit goes a long way with all of these. And it's very easy to overdo them because you might pop this clarity and be like, wow, look at that. It's incredible. The image really looks amazing with all this clarity. But then you wake up in the light of day and you're like, oh, that was horrible. Oh, that was texture, I'm sorry. So clarity actually is more obvious. You'll see it here. Okay, clarity is sort of like mid-tone contrast. And then dehaze can get really ugly really fast, as you can see. So we're not gonna do that. But I do find, again, a little bit goes a long way to really enhance the image. I never would recommend dehaze just a few years ago because it was a terrible control that never looked good. And Lightroom's actually improved it significantly to where it's usable. So I actually really like it now. And then vibrance and saturation, same thing. Don't overdo it, but don't underdo it, because if, look at the bird, like everything is grayish now, okay? Because we don't have enough vibrance. So
I think,
anyway, that's kind of the overview of the basic edits, right?
Just to cut in for a second.
And that's the preset, talking about the preset, what it does.
The best part about working in Lightroom and working in a raw workflow is there is zero risk to permanent damage, if you want to call it, to a file. David can go to town on those sliders, make the image look as bad, or I mean, bad is subjective. Yeah,
how's that? Is that
as
good?
he wants, but he can just change it.
There we go.
There's nothing permanent.
I like this one. This is perfect.
So I encourage people, even though we're talking about certain editing techniques that we think may be best practice or whatever, I encourage people to push the sliders too far. To see what does each one of these sliders do on its own, and how does it affect another slider.
For sure.
If I bring the highlights all the way down and the whites all the way up, and
what does it do?
What does it do? Because we only have so much time, right? But this is how you learn editing in terms of what the tools do, is by going a little bit too far and then backing it off. Maybe that's way too far. But
right, but let's say that I ended up with this.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it as bad as possible for like explanatory purposes.
We got it.
So that's pretty awful, right? All right. So what I want to show is on this side, I am going to have to hide me Bye, guys. Okay, here we go. So let me bring up the old magnifier again. And I want to show you on this side. So here we are on the left side of the image. You see this? We've got our history. And what's amazing about Lightroom is this history is pretty much infinite. It's going to show when we first imported this and with what setting, and then every change that we've made since. And this will just keep running. So I can just roll this back to any point in time, and you'll notice that looks a lot more normal. So I don't have to start, I don't know why it keeps jumping back like that. That is weird. I don't normally work in a zoom view, but here. But you can see as I roll through these corrections, okay, you can see every step of the way. So if I go back to the normal view, and then I just resume editing, everything's fine. I don't have to go back and start all over. I can always work backwards. And I love that because also when we close Lightroom and open it back up, and it could be years later, all of my edit history, every single step I've done is all there, which is awesome. Photoshop also has a lot of history, but every time you close and open the file, it vanishes.
Yeah.
So this never vanishes, which is amazing.
That's a non-destructive workflow. Jose, you can come back to us if you want. Essentially, a workflow that allows you to do whatever you want without any permanent effect. So, you know, over time, as you both learn more about Lightroom and also Lightroom improves its processing, you can go back to files you've already processed, dive through that history, make adjustments, make them look better, make them look more like true to your vision without penalty. So it's actually the most powerful aspect of a raw workflow.
Yeah.
Because you can't do that with a JPEG.
Nope.
At least not without messing it up royally and losing a lot of quality because it's
And
compressed.
no, to answer the next question, no, you cannot do it with the TIFF either.
Yeah, got to be raw. So Lightroom is all about a non-destructive raw workflow. To me, that is what you're paying for when you're paying your $10 a month forever until we die. So again, we can't cover everything today. We've already got an hour and 25 minutes.
A while, yeah.
Yes, I know we barely touched anything.
I know, I know. So what should we talk about,
One
though?
thing I'd like to talk about, because David, many episodes ago, talked about his Lightroom presets, and of course was deluged with requests to get them, to the point where he actually created a Red Dot Forum article.
Well, you're looking at what it did.
Right, dedicated to Lightroom presets that are camera specific. So instead of talking about these broad concepts, let's talk about something specific that I think the people who are watching this may be interested in.
Okay.
If I'm starting on your article,
Yes.
which I want you to pull up for me in a second, or you can pull it up while we're on this view. If I'm starting on your Red Dot Forum article about Lightroom presets, and I have a Q2, let's say, how do I go from that article to that preset living inside of Lightroom so I can use it on my Q2 files?
Sure.
Can
Well,
you
let
show-
me
can you show us
download
that?
it. Yeah.
All right, so Jose, why don't you switch back to the screen? And so if you're curious about how Lightroom presets work, which we get this question all the time, I think this is a great, we're just gonna cover it right now.
Well, I'm
That
going to
way-
navigate it. Yeah, I'm going to go back just so you see where it is.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to red.forum.com under the More tab. Wow, it is. I really do need to zoom in. Although here I can zoom in. Nope, not that. There. Hey, how's that? Better, guys? Okay. So we're going to go to the More tab under Technical Articles. And you'll see right here at the top, I've got Lightroom presets for Leica cameras.
So there are instructions in the article, but we're going to show you live. We're going to show you how to do it. So this is a good part of the video to, rewatch.
Yeah, and here I kind of explain that histogram concept I was going over a little bit.
So at the bottom of the article are links.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
To download.
There they are.
There we go.
All right, so let's do, you said a Q2?
Yeah.
All right, so I've got a Q2 right here. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to say, oh, what is that? Although I think I already have.
Probably.
I probably have it, but I can save it somewhere else.
Yeah. You can just rename it if you
No,
want.
it's fine. We're just going to do Q2 preset. I'm going to just put in right now my downloads folder just because let's just get it there. Okay. I just downloaded it, and it downloaded right here. I'm going to use my not so amazing zoomer thing here. Okay, so you see it, Lightroom Q2 preset, downloaded. And what I'm going to do is say, I can show in folder and you'll actually see where it is. So it's in my downloads folder like a Q2 preset, okay? Now, oh, I should click on that. Now, it's like, what do you want to do with this? It doesn't know what to do. On a Mac, it'll just say, it'll like angrily bing at you. You can't open it. Doesn't work like that. Kind of like we deal with in presets, or firmware rather. Yeah, firmware and presets are very similar. So within Lightroom, let's go zoom in again. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, you'll see here.
And we're in the develop module.
In the develop module, D.
Yes.
Okay, you'll notice I'm starting in my upper left for reference here. I'm going down, and you'll see there's a presets tab. It might be collapsed for you. Okay, so you just expand that by clicking it. And if I click the plus, I can say import presets. I can also create presets from there. But I'm gonna go back here. Okay, I'll say import preset, and it says, okay, where do you want to import from? So I'm just gonna go to my downloads folder, which is where it was, and there it is, now it's really huge. I'm gonna import that. Okay, and it's imported. So now it's showing here under user presets as a Q2, and that's it. It's as simple as that.
How do you activate it?
So either to activate it.
Let's say like you're looking at a Q2 file right now. I just downloaded a preset, and I want to make that preset go onto that picture. What do I do?
Well, I'm actually clicking it right now, and you can see it preview it. So as I roll over the different presets, you'll see that it's actually changing. So I'm rolling over an SL2 here, a Q2, and an M9 monochrome, because why not? Yeah. So I click the Q2 preset, and suddenly all of my sliders on the right side of my screen have now changed to more accurately reflect a Q2 image.
There we go. I'm going to ask and answer 3 quick questions and then throw to you a longer one, okay?
Yeah.
Just so we appreciate the chats coming in here. Jeff asks, is an adjustment layers in Photoshop non-destructive? Absolutely. Same concept, different program.
Much bigger files.
Yes. Maybe a different episode one day, but correct. Where to go? Oh, Jim says, so how do you know what aperture you shot at? Do you have to write it down or remember it?
No,
Yeah.
I'll show you.
You have to, well, no.
Well, on an M camera?
Yeah, back to the metadata question. Yeah, you either have to
remember
write it down and then keyword it, or remember it and keyword it, or just not care and hope that you got a good picture, which is what I do.
I can show you here on the...
yeah, so we can get to that. So that was that. Hold on, there was another question. And then we're going to get to the couple of big ones. Can you batch them? I guess that was... Well, Paul says, I feel Capture One delivers better results for Leicas. We talked about this earlier. This is a Lightroom video. We know there's other stuff out there. We like Lightroom. But obviously, the only thing that matters is you like the pictures. That's all I care about. You have to be happy with the results. So if you get results you like in Capture One, awesome.
Great.
That's great. Seriously. We like what we get in Lightroom. We're happy you're happy. All good.
Although I can give a specific example. This is something we saw happen with the M10R launch, that there was some chatter on the internet that it just was horrifically bad at like 1600 ISO, and the colors were wonky, and the reds looked orange and whatever. It was so far off, and people were really frightened that there was something wrong with the camera. Well, as it turns out, those images were edited in Capture One. Capture One did not have a good profile for the camera, and it made it look like garbage. And when comparing the exact same files in Lightroom versus Capture One, Lightroom handled them properly because they're supported with in collaboration with the manufacturer. I'm sure Capture One will fix that issue, probably, to where the M10R files look good. But, it scared a lot of people initially because they were really worried that there was something wrong with the camera, when in fact, it was wrong with the program, which goes back to there's no such thing as out of camera, because they said this is what it looks like out of camera right into Capture One. You have to understand, no matter what program you open it in, it's modifying it. It's applying a camera profile. No matter what you do, unless you're looking at the code of the raw file and you're in the Matrix or something, you can't see that information. What you're seeing is always going to be influenced by the program you're opening it in.
We don't want to bash any other programs, obviously.
I'm saying they'll probably fix it.
This video is about Lightroom. That's what we use. So again, we're not dismissing other programs. If you got a workflow that you like, awesome.
Yeah.
We like Lightroom, just like we like Leica. So,
I used to like Capture One.
Okay, so where to go? Oh, here we go. question that someone asked and someone else said they also want the answer to.
Sure.
Let me find it. Charles, your question is here. So you talked about when you're traveling, how you've got your travel catalog.
Yes.
You get back home.
Yes.
How do you take that travel catalog and bring it into your main catalog?
Great question.
So the question is, you've traveled, you've got your laptop, you've done your edits.
Yep.
You've made a separate catalog for that trip.
Yep.
Now you're home and you want to have that master catalog. What do you do to get the travel catalog into your master catalog?
Very simple.
Go.
And this is great. Lightroom wasn't always like this, so this is fantastic. So we could take this catalog that I just created called live stream demo, right? So let's take the live stream demo catalog, even though I haven't really done anything in here, just kind of monkeyed through the image. I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna open up my main catalog, and I'm gonna import this into my main catalog. How's that sound? Good?
It sounds great.
All right, so let's do a screenshot here.
Probably,
you might wanna hide me again. Sorry guys, goodbye.
For everybody's benefit. Oh, sorry, that's not allowed.
All right, so what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna close this out. Do I really wanna quit? You know, I actually do. I do wanna quit.
It's very considerate, you know.
It's very, very considerate. It's like, do you really wanna do that? So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to now, nope, not that. I'm gonna open up, and actually what I should have done is open up my, never mind, I'll just do it this way. Where are you? Catalog. Okay, so I'm gonna open up this catalog. And you can open it by double clicking on it. You can open it from recent files. You can open it from within Lightroom. That's probably the way I was gonna do it. Okay, and it's just taking a second because there's like many photos in here. Give it a second. Okay. Yeah, so there is, in this catalog, about 68,000 photos. And you can see the number here, 644475. That's not a file number. That is an image number in my catalog, which is pretty bananas, right? But as we were talking about performance, it's pretty good, right? And I can just go through here and it's behaving pretty normally. Okay, so let's get back to the question at hand. I have this other catalog that I now want to roll into this catalog. So let's do our zoomy thing. I'm gonna go to File, okay, and I'm gonna say Import from another catalog right here. Click that. Now it says, okay. It's still looking in the Downloads folder, but I don't want to do that. I'm gonna go, in this case, it's actually in the same folder that my other catalog is in. Where are you? There we go. And I'm gonna go to, did I put it there? Yes. Okay, live stream demo, and there's that catalog. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to choose this one, and what it's going to do is import this. Oh, sorry, here we go. Couldn't see that little window. All right, here we go. And it's saying, okay, import catalog, live stream demo. You have 735 photos, one folder. Now normally, if you had a lot of other folders or other, this would obviously give you different information. And it's gonna say, what do you wanna do? Add new photos to catalog without moving, which is true. I don't wanna move these somewhere else, but you can actually move the photos completely from one computer to another if you want. And boop, boop, boop. I'm just gonna kind of skip all this for right now because there is no photos that are missing. This is just what do you do when you can't find the pictures. Okay, and I'm going to now import. And then you'll see, sorry, this little box in the middle, importing photos. So this is now merging those two catalogs, my 735 SL2 shots from when I was traveling, in quotes, to my main master catalog. And it's going to now reference those photos and any edits that I've done, any selections I've done, all of that's gonna be in here.
All right, let's pop back to us, Jose, and I'll do a couple more speed round questions while this is doing its magic. So, Paul says, the reason I follow you both is because you better our questions. I thought it was because we were so handsome, but fine, I'll take the compliment. Thank you. Jim says, guys, do you have to tell Lightroom that you're shooting an SL2, etc., or is that embedded in the DNG? That is in the DNG file. That is the main benefit of a 6-bit coded lens if you're shooting an M, because the lens model and name is embedded in the metadata, which makes it automatically searchable and organizable in your Lightroom catalog. So the only things you need to keyword are things that, like David was talking about earlier, beach or Seattle or whatever, beyond the camera model, lens model, even your ISO and shutter speed, all that is saved in the metadata. And
Yeah, and I'll show you guys that.
We're run the first was one other one. You recommend a raw editor. Oh, there's Leica recommend a raw editor. Yeah, we talked about this at the top of the show, but just to mention it again, Leica and Adobe work together
very closely.
The camera profiles and the best file quality, in our humble opinion. So Leica does recommend Adobe's suite of editing software to edit their files.
It's as close to official as it gets.
Yes. I think that's pretty much it. Mike wants to run through a develop module settings, which we can definitely do. We'll do that next.
We did a little bit showing.
Well, I want to show one thing once this is done, because I do want to talk about something I think is relevant to that. We'll get there. What happened to your super fast computer, David? It's still going.
SL2 files, man. Yeah, we'd be here till like next week if this was.
I'm sorry, by the way, for staring at this screen. This is because this is a computer-based sort of topic. I do have to be
looking,
fast in the glow of the monitor more so than usual. So my apologies. I'm not being rude. How's it going over here?
I'm just checking
the
chat as well.
Stuff. Yeah, no, chat. We got pretty much all the good stuff. How's it going over there? It's like 60% done.
Yeah, like 60%.
So I don't develop, let's say, in order. Like I don't go like top to bottom with the sliders when I'm working. I kind of have a workflow that I developed based on the style that I use and the results that I like. So there's no right way. You don't have to go linearly. It depends on how your brain works too. I certainly have some protocols to say, okay, I'm going to do this first and that second. It also depends on if I've got an import preset that has some edits already done, or if I'm editing.
And it's done.
Okay, so now.
So can we come back to here, and I'm going to show you. So now I've got my master catalog, and these photos were ones that were, well, they are now disorganized by, I guess they are sorted by capture time. Okay, so these are now everything that I was looking at previously, but they are now in.
Yeah, so let's go. I want to talk about Mike's question a little bit. Something, go to the develop module for me, David, if you could. Hitting the D key will get you there. Look at us learning stuff. Find a photo that's got more dynamic range in it.
Well, I can, yeah.
Yeah, like one of those kind of photos. That's, no.
Yeah, there's lots of information here.
No, but with a more traditional looking histogram.
Yeah. Oh, you want to
like, yeah, I want to show them something. Yeah. Perfect. Good. So, David, can you zoom in on the histogram and put your mouse over it for me?
Sure.
Thank you. A little zoomy. Now, kind of hover over different sections of the histogram. And you'll see, Mike, if you're watching this, the naming on the bottom left as David moves through different parts of the histogram corresponds with the part of the histogram that tool affects.
Whites, highlights, exposure is the middle, shadows, and blacks. Now you can actually grab it right in the histogram. See that? I don't usually do that because it's not a very finite control, but some people do like editing this way.
Yeah, so this is, if you want to know the actual technical effect that those various sliders have on the histogram, you can see it right in the histogram which parts are affected. So some tools are more focused, some tools are broader. So depending on your objective, and generally David and I use combinations of the tools in concert with each other so that we get the desired result. It's not always, okay, one and then the next and the next. So
right.
Good question.
Yeah, some of the things you don't have to do, like lens profiles are applied and things like that. Yeah. But yeah.
So William asked a great question about we're talking about virtual copies. So guys, how do you create a duplicate of the same photo to have two versions of editing on the same photo?
Sure,
like
let me show you.
Color, black and white.
Yep. Okay, this is, let's get into some actual editing. And I'm going to leave it full screen. So you may not be able to actually see my sliders, but I'm going to be able to see the image, which is more important right now.
Yes.
Okay.
You can always rewatch this and zoom in too. So
yeah. Okay. So although I can actually, hold on. I realized that there is something else I can do here. Interface, and I can make this bigger. Nope. Dim.
What are you looking for?
So what I can do is make this pretty big. Boop. Nope, I can't. Maybe.
You trying to make the film strip larger?
No, all the fonts and stuff. It is that way, but I'd have to restart.
That's okay.
All right. So firstly, I'm going to edit this. Now, what I like to do on the histogram as well, and again, you probably can't see it, but there's two little triangles, one on all the way on the left, which I'll click, and all the way on the right, which I'll click, and you can see here, the little red spots. Now that's blown whites. I don't like those. So I'm going to roll back my whites. Now I have no blown highlights, but I'm right at the edge. And I have I actually do a little bit of blue down here, which means my black levels are a little bit low. So something like that. Now that's a full range black to white image where it's not going to look flat. It's going to be kind of full. But let's say that I'm going to do a quick edit here because it looks a little blue to me. It was auto white balance, but it was afternoon light. So I'm going to warm it up a little bit.
And Jeff, David did answer your question. You can see the clipping warnings you just talked about. So
yep.
Yes, they are clipping warnings.
Okay, so I'm going to bring that down. I like that sky, but now my foreground's a little dark. So I'm going to, and we can talk about this a little later, but I'm just going to do it for the sake of editing. And I'm going to bring up my foreground with a gradient tool.
Right, we're just trying to get it.
I'm trying to get an edit. Yeah, I want to give you kind of a.
I think that's probably fine.
Kind of a finished, edit.
Enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Where was this anyway?
This is Crescent Lake in Olympic Peninsula.
Oh, nice.
This was stopping because I saw a nice sky and almost ran off.
All right, so you've edited your file. What's next? You want to.
So let's say I want to make a black and white version.
There you go.
Okay, so I've got a color image here, and it's still not quite to my liking, but okay.
It's good enough.
It's good enough. So what I'm going to do, and I'll zoom in so I can show you now. In the film strip right here, I'm going to right-click on that image, and I'm going to say Create Virtual Copy right there. Click that, and it says Create Virtual Copy Made, and you'll see if I hover over this, it says 1 of 2 and 2 of 2, and it's created another image. I want to emphasize I did not actually create another DNG image. There is still one original file, because you'll notice if you look at the file name, okay, it's L10102008.dng, and it says copy 1. The other file, if I hover over that, will say, if it ever comes up, will say exactly this. Come on, you can do it.
You click on it.
I do have to click on it. Okay, there. It says exactly the same file name because it is exactly the same file. It's just a different recipe for that file. Okay, so I'm going to zoom back out, and I'm going to take my virtual copy here, and I'm going to turn it into black and white. And of course, with black and white, I'm going to need some different editing because I want it much more dramatic than that within reason. And I'm going to use my black and white mix to bring down there's not a whole lot of color in this.
So the virtual copy functionality allows you to create the identical image without copying the file, without taking up more space. You can have as many virtual copies as you want and have 10 versions of one file.
Yeah, so there it is in color, and there it is in black and white. And I can, if I select both, I can export both, and it will create 2 completely different finished images.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Can we answer? There was one quick question here that's pretty easy. Hey guys, I assigned David's preset to my Q2 on import. Is there a way to reset to out of camera on a particular file?
Yes. So right, and I'll show you. The answer is yes. You just click this reset button, and I'll click it so you can see reset, and it did some weird jumpy thing. And you see that's the with nothing. That's with no preset, no nothing. But I can always roll that back to here. So that's a little bit of a change, right? From here to here. And that wasn't a whole lot of editing. I just moved a few things around. We could definitely get a lot more in depth here. But the idea, yes, you can roll back to here, and I'll just show you from there to the preset is that. So already the preset, I think, is making a much more compelling starting point than if I saw this in my film strip. This is very blocked up shadows, very washed out highlights, but if we go to the import preset, it comes in almost done. All I really did is just tweak a little bit of highlight and shadow and adjusted the white balance a little bit. And, we come up with something a lot more compelling.
All right, David, let's get on, because we're getting late. So let's get to a topic that I think is oft misunderstood. Sharpening. Do I need it? And if so, how much do I need? Thank you, Mike, for bringing that up.
Okay. So sharpening. If you want the little shot of me so we're not staring at a blank screen.
And you're back.
Or that. Or the little me. We'll do the little me. Okay.
Nope.
Still can't see me. Hey, there I am. Okay.
Sweet.
All right. So here is the deal about sharpening. I do not sharpen on a per image basis. I sharpen on a per camera basis because either I've taken an in-focus picture with a sharp lens or I haven't. Nothing is going to make an unsharp picture sharp again. What sharpening is for the characteristics of that sensor and how it behaves. And I would say that, and that's all built into the presets that I made, the sharpening is designed to work well for each of those camera sensors. You can also, I would say that my personal taste is not to over sharpen. I would prefer something a little bit less because generally when you're exporting, there's also going to be some export sharpening. Or if you're printing, the printer rip might also add additional sharpening. When you're resizing images online, there's sharpening applied when you resample them down, etc. So it's better to have a not over-sharpened image to begin with because it can fall apart pretty quickly. That being said, I'm going to walk you through kind of my recommendations for Leica, which is right here. Okay, so my sharpening settings.
So where are you? Just
sorry, let me go.
You kind of jumped up there.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Why don't we...
So in develop.
Yes.
And I'm going to scroll down, and there is a tab called.
You went way past it.
Right here. So called detail, and you'll see here it's our sharpening and our noise reduction. So for the SL2, I'll pretty much use this. It can actually take more than 70. Because the pixel pitch is very small, meaning it's high resolution and small pixels. Generally speaking, higher resolution cameras can take more sharpening than lower resolution cameras in general.
And these sharpening configurations are built into your presets for
Correct.
each camera, right?
Yes.
So if you download David's Lightroom presets and install them in Lightroom for each camera that you own, for each Leica camera that you own, and just activate them, you'll have David's recommended sharpening settings. And you can adjust to taste, of course, because it's all subjective, but at least you'll have a baseline for what we think works best.
Right. So, I mean, this happens to be a, let me go, I'm just going to find a quick image that is, maybe has more details, and I'll turn off my highlight. This is the highlight and shadow warnings I was talking about. Oh, it actually looks weird because of the zoom factor. Sorry. There we go.
There we go. Much better.
So it's pretty sharp looking. If I turn off sharpening,
And you probably won't be able to tell
you probably can't tell
via the YouTubes.
on YouTube, but
yes,
it's subtle,
right?
Which it should be.
It's not a night and day difference. It's not because we're not sharpening for print right now.
No,
we're sharpening, as David said, for the camera.
for general use.
You may sharpen for print, you may sharpen for web, you may sharpen for social media. Those are going to be different. Those are that's export sharpening.
Correct.
This is editing sharpening, or we can call it import sharpening if you want to call it that.
Right. Yeah, so you can go more, but, and the reality is, well, here you can actually see, or maybe you can't see, how crazy that just like fell apart because I put way too much sharpening in.
Ian, if you go like a little bit back, you'll see we talked about, David has an article on Red Dot Forum about Lightroom presets. Is it in the description?
Yeah.
So it's in the description of this video. So if you look, you'll see there's a link to his article and you can download the presets there. So.
Yeah, and like Josh is saying, do exactly what I just did.
Oh, by the way, I also
this
should mention, David.
Take it up, yeah.
David's presets are for Lightroom Classic Creative Cloud.
Correct.
That's what they're for. So if you want to use David's presets and you're on Lightroom 5, sorry, you can't.
They don't work.
So
They're XMP.
that's
Sorry.
That's just how it goes.
Okay. But I would encourage you to play with what each of these sliders actually does. Don't just take my word for it. I think Lightroom defaults to, I think it's 40 or 20.
You can reset this.
Yeah, it's like 25, 1.2, something else. So I do change these. It's basically 70, 0.8, 55, 13, at least for the SL2. And I find that this works pretty well for, well, any photo that's actually sharp and in focus. So you can save yourself a whole lot of time by not bothering with the selective per image sharpening.
Yeah, because really,
there's so many better things to focus on.
That's right, making your pictures look, good, right? So yeah, so David's sharpening settings are based around experience and testing, and not just arbitrary. So there is some.
And it doesn't fix the focus, so you miss the
No,
focus.
let's be clear. Sharpening will not make an out of focus picture in focus. Sharpening is simply adding back extremely fine levels of contrast at a pixel level to make the image look like it should in your head.
Right.
If it's out of focus, unless you have a light field camera, you're not going to, which I don't think they make those anymore.
Yeah. I do want to show a cool feature of Lightroom and another reason to shoot RAW. This is something where Lightroom's improved, which is, you'll notice these series of photos here, how they start dark, kind of normal, and then overexposed. It's because this is a bracketed sequence that I shot in the camera. And a lot of people ask about this. So I know we're not answering a specific question, but I do know that people have asked me about it.
Sure.
So if I highlight 3 images down here in the film strip of my bracketed exposure sequence, and I right-click, let me zoom in again. Sorry, guys. Okay, I right-click with all 3 of these selected. You can see that. And how do I select more than one? Let me deselect. I select by clicking on the first one. I hold down the Shift key, and I click on the last one, and jump all over the screen. Okay. So I'm going to right-click, and what I'm going to do here, okay, I'm going to say Photo Merge to HDR. You'll also see that there's panorama in here as well, but I'm going to do HDR. And it's going to bring up this little preview box.
Zoom out a little bit. There you go.
Creating HDR. And this is also where having a fast computer comes in. So it just merged 3 47 megapixel images into one big one. Still 47 megapixel, I should add, but now with much more dynamic range. So it's auto-aligned all these. It applied auto settings. I'm going to turn that off. And you'll see that's just kind of the raw image. Auto settings is just kind of like Lightroom's built-in auto. Like if you click the auto button, this is what it would do. And you can also create a stack, which is pretty cool. That's this button down here. What that does is it arranges all 3 of your exposures and the finished HDR image into kind of a stack of images in your film strip, so you don't have tons and tons of stuff happening on the bottom. And I'm just going to go ahead and merge these. And it says Photo Merge added to tasks. And right over there, it's going to show up. Okay, so you see up here, creating HDR. Takes a few seconds to a few minutes. And there it is. So now I'm going to zoom back in just so you see what I meant by a stack. Okay, so see, it says 4 here and a little stack of images. If I click that, it expands. And if I click it again, it contracts into one single image, which is pretty cool.
So now we're looking at an HDR right now. Is this 3 photos?
Yes.
Merged into one.
Yes, and it doesn't look HDR. It looks pretty good just with the auto settings. But it does have some blown out highlights a little bit. The difference is the exposure range is extreme. So now when I pull down the exposure, there's still detail in those highlights. And if I bring it up, those shadows open up like crazy. So it only took me a few seconds to do the HDR, the bracket in the field. I just set it.
Now, were you on a tripod for that shot?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a key. If you don't know this already, if you want to do this, you do need to be on a tripod and nothing can be moving because otherwise you can't merge them together. They have to be as close to identical as possible, ideally identical in terms of the subject.
Yeah.
And now you have this super awesome mega. Now, if you look at this photo, if I just showed this to you, you wouldn't say, oh, that's an HDR.
No.
That's the secret to a good HDR photo. It's not so that it looks unrealistic. In fact, it's actually so it looks like if I were to describe the scene to you and you pictured it in your head. To me, that's the sign of a good HDR. It looks like real life, even though the camera could have never captured all that detail in one shot. In reality, this is 3 exposures, but it looks like one picture.
Yeah, and then I'm just going to do some localized.
David's just showing off now at this point.
I mean,
You're gonna try to, you don't try to say we need to have a part 3, because I swear.
no, part 3.
I mean, the reality is there is so much you can do in Lightroom. And as I've said about 97 times so far tonight, we are not going to cover even a fraction of it. That is why we work with John Latimer. I'm going to say this again. This is John's program. We just put the link on our site, because our goal is to have everyone who has a Leica digital camera or whatever to get the most from those files that they possibly can. So if you're going to invest the time and the money to acquire the gear, learn how to use the gear, once you've got to that point, then you want to invest the time and the money to master the software so that the final image looks as good as it can possibly be. That's my rant that I give frequently, because it's true. It's easy to buy new gear and to just throw money at a problem, but it's actually, to put the time in, it's pretty rewarding in the end when you really get a good Lightroom workflow. That's the key, is a good, consistent workflow. So you're not opening up and you're not fiddling around with 10 different things and you don't even remember where you left off and you're all over the place. It's a workflow that allows you to have good organization, consistent editing techniques, so the pictures look like your pictures. Because that, to me, is the ultimate goal in mastering Lightroom. Is so when you show someone one of your photographs that you're proud of, they look at it and they go, oh, that's your photograph. Because it looks like your picture. Between your photographic eye, your equipment, and your post-processing, all those 3 variables come together to make a photo that is truly yours. We call that a style, I guess, if you're going to be fancy.
Why not, right?
So I'm talking and David's playing around with this file. That's pretty good.
How's that?
That's sweet. Yeah. What does the original look like?
I'm just going to do full screen here.
Okay. This is fun.
Well, I was hoping we could actually... Whoop.
Doesn't like it. Well, I don't know if it's trying to render out for this...
oh, yeah. I don't think I like that at all.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
This is the joy of trying to get it out to YouTube. We broke everything.
We did.
Well, we've made it 2 hours without breaking anything significant, so I'm pretty happy about that.
It's not fully broken.
But I can't emphasize this enough. Now, there's a lot of great resources online, as well as what we offer for learning Lightroom. A couple would be lynda.com is good. I think Kelby Training does stuff that's pretty good. I haven't used any of these services. I've talked to people that have. And there's probably tons of great free YouTube content as well. So, you don't have to pay for someone to do it. You can easily go online and if you're a bit of a self-starter, you can learn this stuff. It's not a mystery. There's millions and millions and millions of people using Lightroom at all different levels right now, and there are tons of resources out there. The most important thing you can do is to get out there and actually learn the program and spend time mastering it.
All right, do you want to see a before and after?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we get back to the... There we go. Okay.
Ready? So there's another little keyboard shortcut, Y. And I'm going to hit Tab. So the one on the left, the one on the left is the before, and the one on the right is the after. So now that's before HDR on the left. If I actually compare it to, let's do this. So just my single exposure shot, and I'm going to do a comparison view. Which one is which? Okay, so that is... okay. So the one on the left now is my edited HDR, and the one on the right is going to be just a stock image. My goal is to not make it look so HDR, but basically I'm going to zoom in, to have more detail in areas like this, where you can actually see more shadow information, where I can see more highlight information, but still retain the look of a normal non-HDR image. So there you go. That's okay.
I just want to throw in one quick tip that I always find myself using when using Lightroom. After you import the photos, if you're going through the photos and you're trying to select potential edits, I click B on the keyboard, B for boy, and it just adds it to a quick collection on the left.
Oh.
And, it's a good workflow sometimes if you're trying to select potential edits.
Yeah, we didn't talk about rating. There's so much we didn't talk about. Which
we should talk. I should show the metadata since we mentioned that.
We should, but it's like 10 o'clock, so we should probably.
Okay.
I think everyone hates us now, so.
Let's talk about metadata, real quick. Okay.
All right.
Ready?
What do you mean real quick?
Real quick.
That's
real
another
quick.
40 minutes.
All right. So if I click metadata up top, let me zoom in again. I closed the magnifier because it was freaking out on me, but okay. So right at the top, okay. Usually it says none. And this is at the top of the library module. I'm just showing you that. Library, okay. And I go to metadata. You will, I'm going to actually go to all photos. Okay, all photos. And I'm going to go back to metadata. Okay, now, why is there a 5D Mark III in there? Oh, because they're stock images. Okay. That is very weird. Let's zoom out again. So I can see from different dates. I can organize. You can see here, 2020. I did not take a lot of pictures in 2020. 2019, 2018, 2017. I can scroll through. I can see the different kind of cameras. You can see them all here. So I kind of shoot with everything. That's not mine. Okay. And let's say I select the SL2, right? Let's do SL2. So now I've got 7,000 pictures in this catalog from the SL2, and I can even narrow that down based on lens choice. So let's say I shot with a 35 1.4 M lens. Well, these are all shots. I'll zoom back out. These are all shots that I shot with a 35 1.4. Okay, and I'm gonna go a step further.
And no, David's presets only work in Lightroom Creative Cloud. I want to mention that again.
Yep.
If you want to use David's presets, and they're free, you do have to have the latest version of, or at least some version of Adobe Creative Cloud. It's not going to work on Lightroom 6 or 5, or it's got to be Creative Cloud.
So I want to show this here. So at the bottom corner, that's all the way at the bottom of my screen, the bottom corner, I'm going to select 3-star photos. Okay? Okay, so 3 stars out of everything I've shot with the SL2 and the 35 1.4 with 3 stars is 34 pictures. And you can see how quickly I was able to narrow that down. Let me just...
Yeah, the amount of resolution you have, what I mean by that is you can drill down so specifically in a Lightroom catalog based on camera, lens, year, rating,
ISO, yeah.
ISO, anything you want, pretty much. Keywords, of course. So this is a tiny little taste of what Lightroom, you can come back to us, Jose, if you want, of what Lightroom is capable of. Because I feel like we should probably call it. I think that's, because this is getting crazy. I mean, it's so powerful and there's so much to cover. We could do, and we may do another episode on Lightroom at some point in the future. We obviously have to polish our workflow a little bit.
Laura says, only 8 here. I can go another 2 hours.
I can. I want to get some sleep tonight. So hopefully this episode tonight gave some people that had experience a little bit of insight, and some people that have had very little experience a lot of insight into what the program and the workflow is capable of. Again, we're not going to be able to cover.
We're really scratching the surface.
This is 1% of what Lightroom can do. But it's an incredible program that has both image editing in terms of adjustments and image organizing and cataloging functionality, both in one program, which is why we love it so much. So we encourage you to experiment, to make mistakes, to learn.
I do want to show them the smart previews and how to locate missing folders. Because
we have to stop right now. We have to stop.
I want to show them this one thing.
You said metadata was the last thing. You see, guys, I'm trying to
help you guys. I'm trying to help you guys.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Let me just show what it means. Okay. I want to just show that. So I'm also going to now go back and just search. I'm going to go back to all photographs. Okay. And I'm going to clear this. So let's just do all cameras. Doesn't matter. Okay. And I'm going to do text up at the top. So you may not be able to see that. I know you can't see it. Okay. So I'm just going to text. And I'm just going to type in Norway. Okay. And let's do Norway 2020. Okay. So now we have, and this is part of tagging, right? So now I have Norway 2020. And because I still have my star rating on, everything that's 3 stars or more. But I also want to show, let me zoom in again. So let's just pick a photo here. Okay, so there's a photo. And I'm going to go over here, and you're going to see Smart Preview. Okay, the original photo is missing. So if I go to zoom in on it, it doesn't. Smart Preview that I was explaining is I can edit this as if it was really there on my computer. So everything responds the same way that it would if I had the real photo, okay? Now, what I can do to locate that, let's say I want to match it up with what's on my NAS. I'm going to just right click and I'm going to say, okay, show folder and go to folder and library. Now that kind of jumped over here somewhere. There you go. Okay, Lofoten, Norway, January 2020. And you notice there's a question mark right there. So I'm going to right click on that and say find missing folder. And now it's going to jump me up here. And I'm going to go to my network here. And you saw that it was Lofoten, Norway. Do I have it? Watch, it's going to be the one I don't have, right?
Doing great.
Yeah, I know, thanks. Sorry, this is the problem with doing it live. I'm like, where is it?
I mean,
oh, actually, I do know where it is.
As you can see, I'll cut it for a second. David and I are Lightroom nerds, but our goal for tonight and in general is
it's right here.
Is not to sit here and
there you go.
Start to finish tell you how Lightroom works. That's not our goal. It's not possible to do, even if we had 10 hours. It wouldn't be possible. Our goal is to give you an idea of what Lightroom is capable of, to give you an idea of how powerful it is, and to tease you a little bit to learn more.
Yeah.
So David has clicked his, almost done. David has clicked his mouse a lot and sometimes not referred to what he's doing, and he's jumping around, and I get that. We're having a good time and we're showing you cool stuff, but we're not gonna cover everything. Sorry, we're trying, but we can't. So I don't want anyone who's watching this tonight to be discouraged or intimidated. Like David and I, we do this every day. This is what we do. You'll get there. You're not gonna get there watching this video tonight, that's for sure. This is just gonna get you started, and we hopefully can inspire you to learn more. That's the goal.
I like that.
Carry on.
Okay, so now, if I zoom back in, you will now see it says original plus smart preview. So it actually knows where this file is now. And that's going to be the case for all of these files. And if I zoom in now, you can actually zoom in now.
George, can you guys quickly show us how to use all the tools in Photoshop? Yes. Give me 40 seconds.
There we go. So now it's actually zooming in to 100%. Okay?
Thank you, George.
There you go. So now you've got a full res copy.
So what David is showing you conceptually is smart previews allow you to edit your images where the DNG files may be on your network attached storage. Hey, it's Julie.
That is.
That's the person whose cameras we're always stealing. You can edit your images using smart previews when you don't actually have the original files on the hard drive or on your network attached storage. You could be in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
You can still make your edits, and once you're plugged back into your network attached storage or your external drive, everything will reconcile. That's what David is showing.
Yes.
But we seriously have to stop because now we're going on and on and on. Hopefully, we can come back to us. Thank you. Hopefully tonight, again, has inspired you.
Some inspiration.
Teased you a little bit, motivated you to understand that Lightroom is a powerful tool. You can learn it. You can do it. I've seen people who've gone from never having installed the program to making books. I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. So don't be discouraged. Be encouraged. Because this tool is available. It is relatively inexpensive in the grand scheme of all things Leica, $10 a month. And again, we may do another Lightroom episode eventually. That's not our goal, is to be Lightroom instructors. There are far more qualified people than us to do that, as you probably figured. But we have fun and we love it, and we love the results we can get. If you look at any of David's reviews on Red Dot Forum, years and years and years of reviews, and you look at these images from these incredible trips and workshops we've done, that alone can tell you what the combination of Leica cameras and Lightroom can do. It's just that simple. I'm going to stop at that.
Nothing to do with the photographer at all.
No.
It's only cameras and software.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah, there's no talent involved.
No, we fix it all in post.
That's right.
All in post.
I think we should call it.
Yeah. Is there any...
No, I just said... No.
I'm just looking. I'm just looking.
No. You're done. You're done.
Well, Paul says there is, yes, individual paid sessions. Yes. We have a link to it. John Latimer, he's a Lightroom expert. He's a teacher, a professor.
Yes.
And yes, he offers this exact thing.
Yes.
Tailored to your needs on your computer screen.
It's awesome.
So yeah, I would do that. Check out the links below. I actually copied links from last week's episode on recommended like external hard drives when you're traveling.
Yeah. There's like 40,000 links in there. You can spend a whole day just looking at that stuff.
Yeah, and also recommended laptops and iMac configurations and things like that. So you can check that out. There's also a link to the Lightroom for Leica article in there where you can see that. And I think I also have a tutorial video on how to create and use presets specifically, if you want to look at that too, to make your own presets. Because I really encourage you guys, don't like take our word for it that like this is the only way to make your images look. It's just a starting point.
Yeah.
You can take what you like and what your preferences are and your creative styles, what Josh was saying. You've got to develop your own look, your own feel. You can start with mine. I don't care. Like, that's fine. And then adjust those presets, and then you can just save it as your own version and use that. Or you can make multiple versions. You can make a monochrome import preset or a color or whatever. I guess the point is this. Lightroom, one of the problems with doing something like this is it's so capable, so flexible, and so vast that, I mean, we could sit here. I could sit here till tomorrow night and still not be able to show you everything that Lightroom can do. And I think, like Josh touched on it, we're not trying to give you like, here's to start to finish, and here's everything you know about editing, and here's everything about how to make HDRs or panoramics, and everything you're gonna need to know. The reality is, you really just need to learn the basic tasks of importing your images, exporting images, things like that, organizing, keywording, tagging, editing, and the specific needs will come up. You'll learn how to do that thing, kind of put it in your arsenal, and you'll slowly grow and expand your knowledge base. And that's what we've done over, I guess, the last 10 years using Lightroom.
Yeah.
Is just, you pick up a thing here. Now I know from Jose that I can add to a quick collection with the letter B.
We're learning stuff right.
I didn't know that.
Learning stuff. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. Thanks, Jose.
So because I never had to use it, I never found a need for it. But now it's like, that is pretty useful.
Yeah.
So so it's all about being inspired. It's all about exploring. You can't mess it up. The files are still there. They're not touched. Lightroom doesn't touch your files. So do not be afraid to experiment, to try things out, to stretch the boundaries of your creativity, and just explore and have fun with it, because that's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
We're doing it to have fun.
That's true.
So I think
we're done.
We are A1 done.
Yes. We're just gonna power everything down and go home. We're done.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning into this odd session of a lot of looking at my computer screen. It's not our normal format, obviously, but we do enjoy you being with us for all of it. And we'll be back in
2 weeks.
2 weeks' time.
We're 2 episodes away from episode 20.
Ooh.
Episode 20 is going to be another Ask Us Anything.
Nice.
So we have a month to get ready for that, for all the questions that we're going to get thrown at. So
nice.
Be ready.
Do we know what we're doing next episode?
Well, I have like 3 ideas,
okay,
and we're distilling it down between the 3, which we'll probably talk about this week. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned for our next episode 2 weeks from tonight. So 2 weeks Saturday. And as always, thank you for everyone who helps us out. Jose, Kirsten, Josh, thanks to me. I don't know. And please be sure to like the video if you found it helpful. Subscribe to the channel for maybe more camera-centric talks in the future and less computer stuff. We're going to get back to our mainstream.
Yes, back to Leica in 2 weeks, I promise.
Back to Leica.
Yes.
And lots more stuff to come. So thanks.
Good night.
Have a good rest of the evening and good rest of the weekend, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.